Leading Edge Tech. I'm GigaOM CTO Howard Holton, and this week we have a very special guest. Lori, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, sure. Thanks for having me. My name's Lori Lamkin. I am the leader at Microsoft responsible for the customer engagement tools. And so really the business and the engineering and product management organizations. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about where we're going.
Awesome. Well, this week we're going to try to cut through the jargon and give you what you need to make sense of it all. In this case, being customer engagement and CRM. All right. Well, thanks for joining us this week, Lori.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah, it's fun, right? I think this is an interesting topic because we've seen a lot of change over the last few years in how sellers operate, how sellers go to market, how sellers communicate with their customers. In some ways, there's a lot more pressure. In some ways, I think there's a lot less. But much like these very tools that we're using now, right? The communications tools have evolved in the last 3 years. I don't know why. So has sales tools. So let's get into it a little bit. COVID, it's been 3 years and we're still talking about it kind of every day. But COVID really changed the way we work, right? So between closing offices and sending everybody home, as well as so not just we're not meeting in person, but also the dispersed nature of hiring now, it's really changed how sales teams work, how sales teams engage, like what that process looks like. What have you seen and heard, and kind of what do you think of the new way of working?
Yeah, well, you can see me right here post-COVID. The Microsoft offices are open, but here I am in my home office, doing a podcast instead of being there. And it gave people a lot of flexibility, and it actually turned into a lot of digital communication. So where the sellers were going and spending time a lot in face-to-face communications or calls, suddenly there's a lot of digital communication taking its place, and that provides an opportunity for change, because when you're going up face to face with somebody, it's just kind of you and the other person, and there's an ability to connect at a personal level. But you also, on the other hand, don't have a lot of the resources available to you like I do here with 3 screens of information while I'm talking to you. So, I think it gives an opportunity to help the seller be more prepared and also more connected based on the history of the customer, where the customer or the potential buyer is coming from. That wasn't there before. And my goal is to make sellers feel more like trusted advisors in their role versus, I'm on my heels, I'm being reactive, I'm doing a little tap dancing, I'm trying to make sure I'm relating and getting the deal moving forward as much as possible, but really making them feel like I'm prepared, I'm ready, and I have all the resources at my fingertips. And this whole ability to be engaging digitally opens up that opportunity like never before.
Yeah, I like that. I think one of the other kind of knock-on values that we've got from this digital first sales experience, right? To kind of put that label on it, because we're all meeting on Zoom or Teams or whatever meeting platform, Google Meet, I guess. WebEx still exists. It also means if I were a seller, I would also have access to a lot more resources at my company, right? So, places I've worked before, we had, a field CTO, for instance. You're not getting that person on the ground ever, but can you squeeze in a 1-hour Zoom? A whole lot easier than I can squeeze in an all day travel day, right?
Yeah.
A solution architect, an engineer, someone who's a specialist in something. In some cases, maybe even the TAM, right? The technical account manager, or a post-sales support resource may be necessary. And you do, to your point, right? Because I can see and prepare, and I have that information in front of me. If the customer says, "Hey, we're having this issue," you actually now have the ability to go, well, rather than just let me send that person a message, let me send that person a message and see if they can drop in and give us an update.
That's right.
Right. And I think that is a benefit that to be honest I don't see leveraged quite as often as I like to, but it
Yeah.
is in fact a benefit, right? Being able to have 7 people where in fact you had 2 and had to go get a bunch more questions answered afterwards, really has improved with this whole digital experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think you made a couple of points there. One is I can take a heck of a lot more meetings online, and so from a seller's perspective, I can really touch base in a personal way with a lot more of my accounts. And from a buyer's perspective, I'm more open to taking a 15-minute meeting. I can get in and actually listen to more people. And from a seller's perspective, it's like, oh my gosh, I can get that meeting that I never was able to get. And then that is pretty cool. I feel like one of the things that we need to do is, yes, all of these people are more available. You can go and direct message them, IM them, and get real time information as you're having a conversation with a customer, or, phone a friend, like should happen. And so the emergence of deal rooms is kind of what came with seller tooling is, just this one place where you could have a chat, a set of files, all the key stakeholders in the company, and you can post updates there, and the CRM information is there for a lot of people that don't even really live or use or maybe even have access to the CRM tools. They can still collaborate on the deal, like the finance guy that needs to approve the discount or something like that. You're able to really engage the whole group quite quickly. And so the technology is there to assist this whole new opportunity that's opened. But what I see is making that really easy for the seller to access, because it's new and it's a change from how you work. And so, it's like, wow, that sounds really valuable, but how do I incorporate it into my daily workflow? I feel like that only happens if it's a part of what you're naturally doing. It can't be another thing that you have to fire up, another window or another thing to remember. Sellers have too much on their minds. They just want to connect with their customer and move the deal forward and get their paycheck, and as easy as that can be, then the more successful everybody is. But if it's hard, then great. Technology, schmechnology, it doesn't matter. It's too much. I want the quick win.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we all feel the same way, right? That's not restricted to sellers. I want to get in, I want to do the thing to get my job done, and I want to get out with the least amount of distraction. One of the things that was a little bit kind of revolutionary to me, I was talking to a very popular enterprise chat app, the company that makes that chat app, and they said that their vision really is to be the only place that you go, right? You open up the app and everything is done within the app. It doesn't mean it stays necessarily within the app, but you're not context switching. You're acting within the app. If it opens another window, you act with that window. You close it, you're back to the app.
Yeah.
And I think that focus on eliminating context switching, is a really important thing, because if I look at what I have open on my desktop right now, I probably have 10 different applications open that I have to keep track of.
Yeah.
Right? Like if we get context switching down to the point where I only have to have one monitor, that will be nirvana. This whole I have to have 3 monitors because I have so many apps open that are constantly pinging me, is problematic, right? I'm sitting in front of a 49-inch monitor right now going, I think I need another monitor.
Well, like I said at the beginning of this call, I have 3.
Right.
And I don't know how much of that is because I want everything in a single flow of my work. In order to complete a task, I need to pull through a bunch of different applications. I think that Microsoft does that incredibly well, in the Copilot technology, to be able to kind of bring the user experience to you as a task-based request. It's like, hey, what do I need to do to meet quota? What's the best thing I can do this month? I can ask that sort of thing out of generative AI in our sales tooling, and then you can get a recommended list, and then you can dig into it, and then it can open up the RFP, and it can open up all these documents, and it can all tie together with generative AI like it never could. But when we talk about one shell, I kind of think There's been attempts at that in the past, and the thing is that humans kind of context switch or multitask. It's not that I'm working just one deal. I might be working three, or also, you know, completing a purchase for my own simple household. Doing a lot of different. So, let's look at all those windows you have open. Are they all for the same task? Are you really that focused, or are you kind of half watching the podcast and half doing something else at the same time? So you got to kind of, what I look at is you've got to support people in their flow of work. So you have to make the user experience come and integrate when they're completing a task, but you also have to enable the flexibility for them to be able to have multiple things going on.
Yeah, I get that. To answer the question that was a little bit rhetorical, no, I literally only do one thing at a time.
Wow.
Well, there's three things I would say. The first is there is an infinite number of research that supports that humans task switch very quickly. We never multitask.
Yes, that's right.
And task switching has a kind of insane cost to it.
Yeah.
And what I find is if I'm not 100% in something, I'm only about 15% in it. Right. So no, I'm rare in that I have 0 podcasts going throughout the day. I almost never have music going through the day, which is the only thing I can actually have as a background.
Mhm.
I have a nice, beautiful TV that almost always stays off because of that kind of task switching and distraction. Second, I have ADD. So I can task switch very, very, very quickly, but it's also kind of becomes my default behavior to task switch, which
Yeah.
doesn't really help get things
Yeah.
done.
It's like,
Right.
are we getting anything done? Because we're doing little increments.
Right.
Yeah, there's been lots of research that multitasking is not what people actually do, and I've read that before, and I've seen that, and I've experienced it. When I get really stressed, I can go from one thing to another and it's like, okay, wait, stop, focus on one thing. So I definitely feel that as well. However, in my normal daily workflow, I can't even tell you, I've got lots of things that I'm trying to do at the same time, and I am moving back and forth between them. So I think there are patterns of work that people prefer. And I think being Microsoft, we have a huge user base, and we want to make sure that we support your productivity, both generally and through our business, through our productivity applications, and for your persona as a seller or marketing or customer service agent with our Dynamics suite.
Sure. So one of the issues I've always had with, we'll restrict it to CRM here for a minute, is getting the sales teams to actually use the tool.
Yeah.
Right. Many times they see it as yet another burden put on them by people who don't understand what they actually do. That tends to be the comment.
Yeah.
And as a leader, right? The thing that I need the data so I can get the report, so I can know what I need to do, what I can support, and how I can help. And if the sales team is avoiding the CRM and using it to the bare minimum to not get yelled at, I tend not to get the value out of the CRM. What have you seen in the last few years, especially with this transition to work remote? Are you seeing a greater use? Are you seeing different use cases? Have you added features to help improve that? And I know you're collecting analytics. So are you seeing on the back end kind of what impact those changes are making?
Well, first of all, I don't blame the sellers, because CRM tools since, the late 90s or early 90s have been tracking tools. They track your work. And that does not provide any value to the seller. It provides value to their managers. They get transparency.
100%.
But the problem is it's manually collected, it's manually tracked. And so it's a burden. It is and I get no value from doing this. In fact, I can get negative value because all of a sudden now my manager kind of has an idea that this account is getting ready to, oh my gosh, it's a great opportunity, we need to close it. Now I'm getting nagged by my manager. It's better to just go underground. So what we found is what sellers do is they just go off the grid and they use email and they use Teams, and that's their productivity tools all day long that they get value out of, collaborating with colleagues, collaborating with customers. And then when they get, nagged or beaten with a stick, by their manager, they go and track it, and it's inaccurate. It's extremely latent, and it's often incomplete. And then we're supposed to run all this AI and forecasting and reports on this data. So when I came into the CRM business, I observed this and said, well, I wouldn't use these tools either. Like, we need to deliver value to the seller in order for them to use them. And the value can't be just avoiding the beating from my manager. The value has to be, it's helping me better connect with my customers and get my work done. And so we pivoted quite quickly into scenarios where we integrate into Outlook and Teams, and we can do things like recommend updates to the CRM that you approve right there. So, that's a value. Like, I didn't have to do anything. I just say, yes, make that update, the budget change, the timeline change, and it will update the record for me. Or while I'm in an email, I can see a quick summary of the email and a summary of the account and the summary of the, customer sentiment in the last few interactions that you've had, and the, action items that you committed to, and all right there in context. And it can help me draft the email for me. The first draft of the email is written for me, and then I can tune and edit and whatever. And this is actually helpful. I get huge emails, and it's like, oh my gosh, and a quick summary, and connecting it with the CRM data about where the customer is coming from. Oh my gosh, it's saving me a ton of time. And at the same time, collecting the data. And I call this the seller flywheel. It's like, as the sellers get value from the tools, they use the tools, and good data is collected, which then feeds the AI with accurate, up-to-date data, which then makes the value greater for the seller, which makes them use the tools. And then this thing starts working. And that's been our whole mission here at Microsoft, is to get the seller flywheel spinning. And then all the other stuff, quota management, account planning, territory, forecasting, all of that is on accurate data. It's just, I see it as the foundation for success for the business all up, is making the seller productive.
So I'm going to link two things. One from earlier in the conversation, right? The goal to make sellers the trusted advisor, and then the pressure from sales leadership.
Yeah.
Those two things could not be more opposite, right? We all talk about how we want to be the trusted advisor. I as a buyer, right? I've spent the 90% of my career has been on the buyer side, 10% on the seller side. 90% of that time, the sellers that I have are not generally trusted advisors.
Yeah.
I could count on one hand the number of trusted advisors. And my vendors always know who my trusted advisor is, because if I go from company to company, I'm only interested in talking to that vendor if I get that salesperson back, right? Which those who listen to this and run sales orgs recognize that's a hard thing. But I've had to call and go, hey, I'm only dealing with you with this seller. You're at a new company, and that company's in this region. That's not a me problem. That's a you problem, right? And so we're all trying to get to that trust, get to that trusted advisor, right? Either be it or engage with it, right? But a trusted advisor never says anything desperate, right? I always use your attorney as your trusted advisor, right? You could use your doctor, but that works for some people and doesn't work for others, right? But like, I have an attorney, and if I have any legal questions, I call that attorney. For those who know law, attorneys are not one thing. They all have specialties, just like technicians do, right? But I always call the same attorney. I have a real estate question, I call the attorney. I'm going to buy a business, I call the attorney. I'm going to make an investment, I call the attorney. I've got a question about family, I call the attorney. I've got a question about whatever, right? Traffic ticket, I call the same attorney. They're not going to answer all those questions, but that person's going to say, okay, cool, for this, you need to call this person. For this, you need to call this person, right? That's a trusted advisor. I don't think twice. I call them immediately, and I trust that they're going to tell me who to talk to if they can't answer the question. And then I trust that that's going to be a good resource to answer the question.
Yeah.
Right. What my attorney never does is attempt to apply pressure to something because it benefits them. Right. My attorney never goes, hey, let's put you on a retainer, or hey, let's raise the retainer. No, my attorney calls and says, hey, this thing that we're doing, you have to respond by this date. I need information from you. That's something I have to do because I asked them to do it. Right. And so a salesperson that comes to me and says, "Hey, I need you to buy now. Hey, can you close this quarter? Hey, can we get this done this week?" Right? There's a point where that goes from you're asking a question to keep a deal in motion to I can tell you're now applying an unreasonable amount of pressure, and it's probably being applied by you, and that's not a question about me at all. Can
Mhm.
we close this quarter? No, I don't need it this quarter. That's not a
Mhm.
question about me. That's a question about you. That
Mhm.
pushes you further away from the trusted advisor.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
when sales leaders or even salespeople are using the tools to apply pressure to salespeople and expecting that pressure to be applied to customers, they
Mhm.
have to understand that undoes the very thing that you're working to try to do.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking to me is what I would call sales best practices, like, and there's a series, there's books on how to be the most effective seller. And this is one of the thing, and every company tends to write like sales plays and playbooks and reams of documentation on how to most effectively sell. And they tend to adopt a methodology or a set of practices in their organization. And this is another problem because all of that documentation and all of that process is also disconnected from the flow of the seller's work, and it's disconnected from the tools that they use. And so, I think this is another amazing opportunity with generative AI, that what we can do is tap into those internal company resources that have been written, or training and all of that sort of stuff on how to be the most effective seller, and incorporate that into the seller tooling experience. And so that's not just in the dynamic shell, or it's also in Outlook, it's in Teams, it's everywhere. But you can ask questions and you can get recommendations on what to do next with the customer, and real time in a Teams meeting, on the sidebar, customer raises an objection about a competitor. I can give you a SWOT analysis really quick that'll help. And I think the desperation that you're talking about, or the pressure that you're talking about, comes from the seller, feeling like, I don't know how to, feeling like, I'm tap dancing. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I don't have all the information that you need to get better. So I'm just pushing something. And if you can do that in a way that it's connected, it needs to be customer led, and so that brings to me, like, first of all, we can tap into your internal resources like we have with customer service copilot. Your knowledge base can help you answer that question really quick for sellers too. Similarly, I think, so I think bringing that all together, bringing the practices in line with the tooling that isn't just filling out some mandatory fields, that's not a practice. That's just a field that you filled out. It doesn't help you actually implement that practice. I think this is all opening up with generative AI.
Yeah, if done correctly, if executed correctly, and companies understand what it should be used for, how to use it, and how to what actual best practices look like, right?
Yeah.
I think the potential is huge.
Well, I think it all grounds in the understanding of the customer. To your point, it's like, what you want, and you've been pretty consistent over time, utilizing your attorney in your example. And so your attorney has a deep understanding of Howard, like a deep understanding of who you are. And we can do this at scale. And this is where a lot of our marketing tooling is really evolving, is being able to collect and unify all of your customer data sources that are scattered in your organization, make it super easy to digest, and put it in the flow of the work of the seller in a way that's not like, why are you giving me this random person to talk to? But really, this is Howard. You've talked to him 10 times. He's been really active on the website looking at X, Y, and Z. He's, through our qualifications, we think he's really ripe to buy, right now. And you should talk to him about X, Y, and Z, and then you're like, oh, okay. It becomes something that is very tuned to the customer, and it itself learns over time that, okay, that didn't work, like, so don't do that. And I think you can incorporate the best practices, the deep understanding of the customer, and the experimentation and learning that happens all at once. And in the past, this was just too hard to do. It was too hard to get all the data. It was too hard to come up with the perfect orchestration of how this should work. And now I feel like this is all getting really easy. You don't need professional marketing operations people who have years of experience and technical skills to write things, because you can express it in human natural language and get full flows and journeys that optimize with AI over time. I could do it. And that's crazy because I'm not a professional marketing operations person, and yet I can get the impact at the end.
Sure. What about the other side, right? Like we'll use Microsoft as an example because you guys have like 30,000 products on your massive portfolio, right? But I'm an ELA customer. Sales is constantly trying to get in front of me to sell me the new hotness. I'm not picking on Microsoft. It's just every sales company is that way, right? It's kind of what have you done for me lately is the name of the world we live in. So what about the other way, right? Like Microsoft has a new thing coming out that could help me. Will the CRM also prompt, hey, your customer is an M365 customer. There's a new version of Teams that's releasing. It's a fairly big benefit. You probably need to talk to them about this. Here's a an email pre-drafted that you could send them that gives them the updates.
That's one example. It's called product recommendations, and that's one example of an appropriate action that might be good for a customer at a given time. And there's a whole bunch of these sort of things. It's not just product recommendations. It could be just, a connection point, an opportunity to just talk to the customer and probe into what are you looking for? What are your problems? Or open up the conversation or turn the conversation towards them. And so, you look at some of the analytics of things like talk to listen ratio or speed of talking or topic switching or open-ended questions. These are things that we have the data and can help you real time in the call connect better with your customer, both by understanding them and things like best practices. Pause and listen is a great best practice for a seller.
Well, I would take 3 times, 5 times as many meetings if it wasn't always one directional. Yeah. Right. Like to go back to that prior example, right? If my Microsoft, I don't have a Microsoft person now. We're not an ELA customer, but in every other place I've been one. Mm-hmm. And if my salesperson called me and said, "Hey, 7 of the products that you own have had updates. I want to come in and do an update on those." Mm-hmm. Right? Oh yeah, I'll do that all day long. Like we could do a monthly on that, and then I don't care. I'll give you another half an hour to sell me whatever you're interested in that I may not have brought up.
Yeah.
But it always tends to be the other way around, right? And then the salesperson leaves, and I go, and 2 days later, I call them and I go, "Hey, look, you were here 2 days ago. Why didn't you tell me this big update happened that I should have been aware of? Why didn't you tell me that I could benefit from this?"
Yeah.
Right. And one, it upsets me when I have to do that because I'm like, no, I talked to you 2 days ago. I should hear this from the horse's mouth. And 2, I feel like you wasted my time and you only want to talk to me when you have something to sell. And that's not how you become a trusted advisor.
Yes, that's right.
My trusted advisor informs me, hey, my doctor, hey, Howard, your blood sugar's getting a little high. We need to address that, right? Hey, Howard, you're getting to be this age. We need to address that, right? Your doctor tells you, hey, it's colonoscopy time coming up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't start, if you have a PCP and you're asking your doctor after you should have your colonoscopy, when you should have your colonoscopy, that's probably a problem. Oh, you're right. I probably should have scheduled that. Your doctor's probably not your trusted advisor in that case, right?
Yeah.
But the same needs to be said for sales and I would say marketing, right? The alignment between those things is also.
That's right. That's right. I feel like we've been hoping for the world of aligned sales and marketing. But what customers expect and potential buyers expect is cohesion with the communications that they have with the company. They expect that I'm not doing something on the website, getting an email offer, and hey, getting an ask for a product recommendation when I have an open service ticket. Yeah, of course I'm not happy. You should know this. And hey, I'm one of your best customers. Why am I giving you my name 10 times when I'm calling? This is, or why are you calling me? And, I just talked to somebody 2 days ago, so this is what we call the customer journey, is this end-to-end experience. And it's really important that you don't just go in. The future of CRM is not sales tools. and service tools and marketing tools. The future is a cohesive end-to-end experience that delights the customer. And what's happened with marketing automation, it is turning into this journey orchestration. And the fundamental thing that's changed with this is that the journeys are triggered based on customer actions or inactions. So you're leading the way. It's customer first. Because I was on your website, because I had an open support ticket, because my deployment has these versions in it, and because an event happened where an update was, announced or whatever, then something happens so it becomes very conversational and personal in nature. And this was just too hard to do with old technology. And now it's like this trigger-based orchestration is the modern thing. And it needs to break down silos. It can't just be the digital communication is cohesive. It needs to be integrated deeply into the agents that you're talking to, sellers and service agents, so that they're prepared, they know what's happened, and they can continue the cohesion where it left off. And that's the future of marketing automation and kind of the CRM value all up. It's like, wow, create an amazing cohesive customer experience and then prepare that seller to be part of that, prepared and knowledgeable and focused based on seller best practices on you as an individual. And then your meeting recap is on point, and the mail that goes out 3 days later that came from the marketing campaign on point, and you feel like you have a relationship with the company. And that is the vision, that you feel connected and you don't feel spammed or sold to. You feel like, hey, they're taking care of me.
Yeah, they're looking out for me, right? That's kind of the goal. So
Okay.
I'm with you. I'm looking forward to what the future holds, and I think generative AI certainly with, again, the right kind of best practices and deployment and knowledge base, I think has the potential to make a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
I look forward to a time when again, I'm an executive, right? So I don't really talk to the service team. Like if I have the same like if I have a TAM, I do, but outside of that, I don't really talk to the service team. I talk to the sales team, right? And so even just the salesperson being aware, hey, you have 4 tickets open. Here's the status of your tickets.
Mhm.
Here's why they're still open. Here's what's going on, right? And being able to be transparent about that
Yeah.
is also super helpful. And I look forward to the day when I get a call from a salesperson. They go, hey, I know we had a call scheduled, but you have 2 open service tickets. I need to do more research and see if we can get those things closed out before I come see you about the next thing we're going to do, because I want to make sure everything is healthy.
Yeah.
And today, I think most of the time the sales team's not aware of anything within service unless I bring it up, right?
No, they're not. And they're not aware of that. And they're not aware of the marketing information that you're getting either. And so I feel that that's a terrible position to be in as a seller. What, they're on their heels. They're reacting, like, oh God, I didn't know you were getting that. That's stupid. And then they're like, what are all these departments doing? They're wasting my people's time. They're ruining my opportunity. And I think that that is, I feel like with Dynamics, we use one data store for sales, service, and marketing. It's called Dataverse. And so all of the data is just in one place. There's no integrations that you have to build. There's no special things. You have complete transparency just based on permissions to know whether your customers are opening up emails from marketing or a part of a campaign, or if they have open service tickets. That's all accessible to you. And so more and more, but the problem with the seller is the tools are overwhelming. Great, I have access to all this data, but we in CRM in the past, we would say, okay, we'll give you the 747 cockpit with all of this data. You can get news and, from the internet, and you can on the company you're talking, like, I don't need that. Can you whittle this down into what's going to be most effective for me?
Sure.
Because it's just too much. And so that is, like, being able to tune the experience to what the seller is trying to do and actually become an assistant and recommend to the seller based on, because we're smart enough to know this, like based on patterns of what previous customers have done, based on all of the data we've collected on the customer. we can tell you this. We can tell you, here are the key points you need to make. Here are the key questions you need to ask the customers and get answers to that we don't know. Who is the decision maker here?
Sure.
Like you need to get that. So I think that the technology is kind of like let people down on the one hand, because we just have not thought about it from a great product design perspective. I'm talking about the CRM industry.
Sure. Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Anyone in particular, but like to say what is the task they're trying to perform, and don't just bombard people with data. They're just going to be like, okay, I'm gonna put that over to the side. I'm not going to use that. And I think the other thing that so part of it is just great product design on jobs to be done, which is just a classic software development best practice for tool providers.
Sure.
The other part of it is the opportunity of generative AI to open things up. Okay, I have all this great data in a database, but how do I get it out? Do you have to wait for your IT department to create a great dashboard that answers the question that you were asking? Well, now with generative AI, you can chat with your data. And so you can say, what are my top 10 accounts in, North Seattle? Because I'm going to be there today, and get a list. And it's not like, oh, I have to know how to write a nice query and, know all this query language. And, oh, I kind of got a field wrong. And then, oh, I got the wrong answer. Or, that isn't North Seattle. That's, North Atlanta. Like it's just, it's, and I can get reports and visuals and insights and go, no, I didn't mean that. Filter it like that, with just your natural English language.
Sure. You could even do something like show me the 5 accounts that I talked to the least recently. Right. Okay. Schedule a 15-minute meeting with each of those and create an agenda for said meeting based on the data we have available on the client.
And it'll tie all that together and ask you to approve the meeting requests or the emails that go out. It's like it opens up things that were just really hard that you had to call your IT department or something to anyone to be able to do. It's not just the sales manager that gets value out of the data in there. It's the seller too.
Well, that's great. I look forward to the experience on both sides, right? I look forward to seeing kind of how the CRM evolves as a user of CRM and then as a customer of many, many, many sales teams and many sales attempts. I look forward to seeing how the experience will change, right? I'd love a day when I no longer get emails that say, if you're not the right person. No. If I was not the right person, I would have forwarded the email on to the right person. The fact that you're not getting a response doesn't mean you get to be passive aggressive. Like that's not going to endear you further with me. And I'm hoping some of the tools really start to kind of look at that and go, hey, the response for this is really low. We're just not going to do that anymore.
Oh, you should see some of the things in my inbox as the product leader for sales and marketing tooling for Microsoft. I get so many emails asking me if I do the brand strategy, if I'm leading marketing at Microsoft. And, I'm like, I don't think Microsoft is going to respond to a cold call. Yes, I could use some help with my advertising program. So you've got to know who you're talking to. And that's where I go with that deep understanding of the customer being that vital foundation to create, to connect.
Sure. And I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind a day where the platform is so cohesive. It knows what I respond to and what I don't, and just doesn't send me the stuff I don't respond to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'd love like an intent score. Hey, I get what you're trying to do here, but the Howard's likelihood to respond is 2%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like change this language. His likelihood to respond goes up to 17%.
Yes.
Chances that it's higher than that is low if you're cold calling, but
that's right. And we kind of we call that personalized content recommendations that I think can be modified real time with the system, that is going and looking at behaviors and things you respond to and things you don't, and then stops sending things that aren't interesting and tunes the content to what you are interested in. This is all happening now. Like this is it's like, okay, it's just been hard for companies to implement. And that's my job. Make it super duper easy. So like I said, I can even do it. I don't need to hire an expert, because that is what it's the whole implementation of CRM tools that can take just so long to just roll out and train and get everybody up to speed and all that. Why is it so hard? It doesn't, we can make this very, very simple.
Yeah, I mean, if it's easier to look up the contact, go by memory, and call them from my phone, and that's so much easier that it's just as effective as losing yourself in a CRM, I'm going to do that every time, right? I'm not going to bother with the CRM.
For sure.
So one of the things I thought of that was kind of funny, for those who don't follow Chris Roberts on LinkedIn, Chris is a longtime security practitioner and a CISO. Chris has kind of a weekly rant that he goes on about the sales attempts that were made to him. For those that are in sales orgs, for those that are receiving those emails and want a good laugh, follow Chris Roberts on LinkedIn. And Lori, if you're not following Chris Roberts, he might be a really good source of feedback on the things that annoy all of us.
I love it.
There's hundreds of us that I think comment on each one of those, and thousands of us that follow it, and certainly everyone that reads it is like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So it's this has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys found this as engaging as I did, and are hopeful. I know no one really enjoys being cold called. No one really likes being sold to. But the future actually holds a place where we should start to see things that are more personal, that are more built for us, that are more meant for us. Which means the value of the things we get will go up, but also the number of things should likely go down, right? There's no point in sending Howard an email if Howard's never going to reply to it.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, Lori, this has been fantastic. I had a great time, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, me too. That was fun. It's great talking to you, Howard.
So this has been another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Techie. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up. Throw a comment down. If you didn't like it, give us a thumbs down and give us a comment. If you've got an idea for a topic, please let us know. And we'd love it if you subscribed and liked and shared and did all the things. And we will see you on our next episode.
Thank you.